great to see you guys, and I know a whole bunch of you, and if I haven't met you yet, I can't wait to. So my name is Wes Spencer, and really excited to talk with you guys today. We're going to actually make this kind of discussion-based, so keep your brains going and feel free to jump into the conversation. I want you to do that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're really going to talk about one of the challenges that I have seen over and over in the world of cyber, which is something simple, but also something extremely important for every single one of you and all your people, which is, how do I talk about this stuff? How do I actually message it in a way that gets decision makers to care? Anyone worried about that or wonder about that? This is something I've spent a huge part of my career doing, and I'm really passionate about that. And I know many of you are as well. So we're going to have a lot of discussion around that today, but also throughout the rest of the week. So let me just go ahead. Looks like, let me share this out. Just a quick little bit about me. So I'm the Vice President of Security Strategy at CyberFox and been here for about a year and a half. And man, I love the crew. And one of the things we're really big on is educating, not really just selling you. And so today, I don't have anything to talk to you about what CyberFox does. We're actually we'll have plenty of time for that. What I want to do is just help you in the world of security and how challenging this can be. I come out of banking, so as a CIO at a bank, and my journey through all of this was the same as probably many of you. I'm very technical by nature. I was a punk kid in the 90s that loved to just spend all my days like war dialing and finding like Sub 7 and NetBus. Anyone remember those tools like way back in the day? And just being just a little punk. It was never like super elite or anything, just a total script kiddie. But I cut my teeth in the curiosity and fun of security. And so I had to learn the same thing that everyone else does, is how the heck do I get what matters in security across to non-technical decision makers? Like that's hard. That's really hard. How do we communicate in a way that gets buy-in, that gets a trust relationship built, that builds a partnership, especially for you as an MSP? I had it an easy street a bit as a CIO at a bank because I had one board to please. I had one group of decision makers and a cadence with them that they had to meet with me because regulations demanded it. You have the extra challenge of multiply that by N meaning all the clients you have, times Y, which is the number of employees that you have that have that conversation. That's much more difficult for an MSP. So I want to give you some thoughts that have just worked through for me throughout the years. So first of all, one of the things I think we have to level set on is this. Decision makers straight up don't care about security until they care. How many of you seen that be true before? Yep, there we go, right? So they're coming into this relationship thinking, I don't want to pay for this. I've never had to pay for this before. I'm not going to be a target. No one really cares about me. If something happened, it wouldn't be that bad. Like, these are all the horror stories that keep you up at night. Am I right? So how do we get past that? Because eventually they're going to care. When something bad happens, all of a sudden, what do? They point their finger at you and say, how could you have let this happen? How could this have occurred? How could you possibly have been so negligent? And you're like, bro, I've been talking to you about this for years, and you just straight up don't listen. Am I stepping on toes? Am I getting kind of close? Yeah, so let's talk about how we can work through this. So 3 things that will make them care. And let's just start at the basics. So the first thing that's going to make them care is the worst is we have an incident. The client has something that occurs. They don't understand the ramifications of it until it gets really, really bad. And then when it gets really, really bad, and then they understand all of a sudden now I can't operate. Now they start to understand I'm dealing with this thing called ransomware, and to get my data back, I have to pay for this. Or I had this wire fraud that went out, and some kind of unauthorized wire or ACH went out the door. I mean, I've seen that shut businesses down. They don't have the cash to float a $250K payment that went out to somewhere that ended up in Uzbekistan. They don't have the money for that. So that's the first way to get them to care. And it's really bad because it puts you in the worst position. Because they look at you as the person that's really addressing this and should never have let this happen in their mind. Also add to it, they thought they'd been paying you to stop this from the get-go, and you know full well that's never been the case. They won't invest in any of it. The second way that we get them to care is someone else educates them. So they go to some lawyers conference, and the law team brings in this super scary hoodie wearing threat actor, whatever, like hacker guy to speak, and he scares them into caring. We've been through that before, right? And they talk about all the scary, dark, dank web stuff. And they're like, dude, that's scary stuff. And you're like, yeah. But now they come to you and they're like, why didn't you tell me about that? Up on the panel stage was another lawyer that I know really well, and he talked about this breach thing that he had to go through. I had no idea how scary it was. Why didn't you tell me about that? Now, sometimes that works well to our advantage. I can help you with that. But it does put us in a bit of a situation where, from their perspective, we didn't really lead on that, did we? And now we have to kind of say, well, I can do that too. Not a great position. So what's the third way? I'm a believer that we can't scare clients into caring. I mean, we can a little bit. How many of you tried that? How many of you tried? Anyone have any feedback on scaring clients into caring? Yeah. Yeah, with HIPAA, right? Yep. So the onerous regulations require you to do this, right? And I like that because as much as that can be scary, it also is pointing to something they must do. It's pointing to a floor that they have to be above, right? That's in my mind, that even kind of goes beyond scaring. Like, this is the ultimate reality, right? Anyone else have any stories of like trying to scare someone and it worked or didn't work, or it short-term worked and didn't have lasting effect? Yeah. IRS requirements? Yeah. Yeah. So like the new FTC safeguards is what you're talking about? Yeah. So yeah, regulations are huge. I think so as a security dork, because we're really bad at communicating this stuff, a lot of times we try to scare them and they walk away being scared. But then what happens? A month goes by, a quarter goes by, half a year goes by, a year goes by, and what? Nothing happens, right? And so then they look at you like the boy who cried wolf. So I'm a huge fan of what you gentlemen both said. Absolutely use regulations, because that's our requirement to help them map to it. But when we just blanket scare them, it might get a short-term benefit, but not a long-term effect. So education is huge. And that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of this talk, is how can we educate into caring? And you'll be surprised, it's a lot easier than you think. And if any of this is helpful, grab pictures of it, or later I'll give the slides to Danielle. We're happy to send them out to you. If these help you in any way, they are yours to use. They're open source, so to speak. All I want to do is help you. Okay, so you're welcome to use anything I say or throw out what you don't like. So how do we get them to care? How many of you heard we security nerds say, well, you got to align to the business? You heard that before? I've heard it over and over, and I'm like, you're not wrong, but you didn't say anything. If that's super buzzword, align to the business, align to the business, align to the business. Okay, well, what does that mean? What is the business? How do I align to that? And as an MSP, it's really difficult. How many of you have 50, 60, 100 or more clients, and you're saying, I have to align to all of those? That's hard. It is hard. So I'm going to give you some thoughts on how we can do this in a more practical way. So I'm not a big sports ball guy. I have no idea who this dude is. I have no idea what team it is. I'm fairly sure it's NBA. And it says Miami. So I know where Miami's at. That's the extent of what I know. But I also know he's about to do one of those slam dunks. I'm sure he's like ridiculously athletic, and he's like, I know those are 10 feet tall. So the fact that his chin is where the rim is really hard for me to fathom this. Like if I were to try to jump to like a 10-foot rim, I would whiff it so hard. And I'm like 6'1". So I don't know how he does this, but he does it. This guy's good at offense. Here's what I mean by this. When you're talking to clients, one of the best things that you can say is, hey, I'd like to spend a little time with you and understand, what are we trying to accomplish this quarter? What are we trying to accomplish this year? 2025 is upon us. I'd like to get 30 minutes with you and just understand, what is 2025 looking like? What are the big priorities? What are the big things you're trying to accomplish? Now, they might come back and you say, what are you talking about, nerd? Like, you've never asked me that before. I want you to keep my computer. No. I'm going to do all that. I'm going to keep that. I'll keep doing all that. What I want to know is what you're trying to do as a business. Any big priorities? Any big capital investments? Any big looming threats that you see in front of you? Do a SWOT with them if you have to. Do something that gets them to start thinking about where they're wanting to go, because then the conversation unlocks of, hey, next time we meet, can I sit down with you for 30 minutes and talk about how I can make sure we help you get to those objectives? My number one goal is to make sure you get where you want to go. That's all I'm concerned about. Wow. How many of you have those kind of conversations with clients? Cool. And I want the rest of you to have that too. If you're not taking 30 minutes with your clients in that QBR, whatever that cadence is you call it, to talk about where they're trying to go, you're missing the boat. And here's the cool thing. Business owners love to talk about where they're going. They love to talk about what they're building. They love to say, oh, this is big for us. We're doing this, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. Great. Awesome. I want to help you get there because I think we can do it. So let's talk about the other end of the sports ball. Someone told me this is college. I don't know who the Georgia guy is. I don't know who the other people are. I don't know if this is legal, but I do know that that guy is not going to get the ball in the rim. Like, the shooty hoop is not going to go in the hoop. No chance with that dude. You see that? He's like, no. So there's an element of defense in conversations as well. So as much as we talk about offense, I want to help you get where you're going. One of the other things that we have to have the conversation with our clients on is, I also want you to know this. A big part of my job is to stop the things that are going to prevent you from getting where you want to go, Miss Client. Like, that's really important for me. So we are playing both offense and defense. And if you're not having the conversation of, I want to make sure that we're investing correctly into the things that will stop you from getting where you're going, we're missing the boat with them. Does that make sense? So those are the two elements. If you start to learn to just have those kinds of conversations, you'll notice partnership starts to unlock. You'll notice they start to talk to you. They start to treat you a little bit more like, oh, wow, they actually care about me and my business. That's really helpful to me. So the other thing that we have to talk about, and these two gentlemen just mentioned this, aligning to external requirements. And as MSPs, we're getting better and better and better at this all the time. How many of you have clients that deal with some type of regulation of some kind that's over their heads? Pretty much everyone raises their hands. Welcome to 2025. This exists everywhere. Whether it's a specific industry regulation, whether it's a generic like a PCI that deals with all kinds of payments, whether it's state level, federal, we're in this world of congratulations. You started your MSP because you're really good at fixing printers, and now you're having to deal with federal regulations. You know, clients adhere to it with potential penalties back to you if they don't. That's a bait and switch. I talk to MSPs all the time. Like, I did not sign up for this. I'm like, I know you didn't, but there's good money in it if you know how to do it right. Like, yeah, that's true too. So let's talk about a little bit of this. So a few things. First of all, these are the big three that we see all the time. Regulation. I'm not teaching anything you don't know. Supply chain. That's become big, hasn't it? How are you dealing with clients that are saying to you, my larger supplier is making me do this and this and this? How many of you are seeing? Yeah. So now, and why is that? Because the larger suppliers that are dealing with the SMBs that are in their supply chain have said, you've caused me problems. My son is a huge Corvette fan, and we got to go to the Corvette museum and factory in Bowling Green. It was the coolest thing, and I know Adam's a huge Corvette guy. Have you been to the factory? Anyone been there? It's awesome, isn't it? It's the coolest thing ever. And so one of the things I was asking on the tour, I asked the guy, I'm like, so I understand, he was talking about their supply chain, how critical it is, how so much of SMB drives the entire manufacturing industry, especially for Corvettes, and how proud they are of that, especially even being their plant is in middle of nowhere, Kentucky, all this cool stuff. I'm a previous Kentuckian, and Jordan just moved there from Hawaii. I don't know, you're gonna have to ask Jordan why he moved from Hawaii to Kentucky. But anyway, so one thing that's neat about that, and I asked him, he said, so we have a lot of our suppliers that actually just have warehousing in Bowling Green. I said, why? He said, because they can't afford the tolerance of downtime. They'll happily stockpile months worth of parts that they're required to supply. I said, what happens if they can't meet that demand? He said, we have in contract with them that we fine them. And I'm like, well, how much is the fines? I don't remember the number, but it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars that come in a day. They have no option but to comply. So because they have to comply, because it will literally shut their business down, what do? They make every availability for resilience they have to make because third-party supply chain demands it. And we're starting to see that happen. So if you're not asking your clients, hey, I'd love to know from you, what kind of, do you have any requirements that your clients are demanding of you? If they say, I don't know, which is common, my next thought would be, can we go look into that? I'd love to know. Because we're starting to see this more and more. Supply chain is huge. The other big thing that's big, and the Cork folks will tell you this, is cyber insurance. It's become massive. You're going to hear a lot about that today and tomorrow from the Cork folks. And I'm telling you, cyber insurance is one of those things that is a huge, absolute driver. And there's so much to say about this that I don't have time today, but I'll just give you a couple little tips, and then Cork folks will help you with the rest. First of all, if you're not talking about cyber insurance in every QBR, you're missing this. You're missing something. Secondly, you should be storing in your PSA when the client's cyber insurance renewal is coming due. because you need to help them get in front of it. While you shouldn't be the one just answering the questions for them, you can do it in consultative fashion with them, and you should charge them for that because that's professional services that comes from your brain. You should be working with them to say, I need to get 60 to 90 days in front of that renewal so that we can make sure the things that your carrier is asking for that we can put in place and that we're good to go. Because the last thing I want you to have happen is all of a sudden the carrier is asking for something you've never done before. And now you're in a situation in which they say, you're not insurable. And then I have to rush to go fix this problem. So let's not let that happen. Let's get in front of us 60, 90 days in advance. And having a partner like Court can help you with that. So that's big. And I find not enough MSPs are really using that. It's a huge driver. So let's talk about cyber insurance for just a second. So this comes from Fitch Ratings, and I just want to illustrate a couple things. So Fitch, every single year in April, they produce all of the data and aggregate it together in the entire US marketplace. And what we look from year to year is we see some really interesting things in here. So first of all, the blue right here is how much they're losing, is the ratio of how much they lose. So for cyber insurance, think about it this way. For every dollar I bring in, how many cents go out the back door to loss? So I'm not talking about administrative costs and all these other things that are just part of doing business. We're talking about losses, the things that they most desperately want to avoid. And what do we see? We saw in 2020 and 2021 two staggering big jumps. Why did that happen? Why was 2020 and 2021, why do they see so many losses? Ransomware galore. You guys remember that? Like, may we never go back to those days. I'm not going to ask to raise hands, but I guarantee you if I did, one or two of you dealt with that directly. Or your clients did, guaranteed. So we saw a heyday in that time, and it's post-pandemic or in the middle of the pandemic, really. And so everything changed in front of us, and we didn't do a great job of that as an industry, MSPs and just enterprise. So we saw that radically jump. Now, what also do we see? This red line also jumped. Red lines is premiums. How much does it cost to get insurance? So this is basic economics 101. If we start to see a lot of losses, then the carriers are going to say, I got to charge more. This is easy. I have to. So the more we see in losses, the more cyber insurance starts to cost. A better way to say it, though, is this. Cyber insurance is starting to normalize the cost it always should have been. So those dudes, while they're data nerds, they didn't have a lot of data to be nerds about in cyber. And so they stuck their finger in the wind in 2016 and 2017, said, this sounds good, $1,000 for a policy and fog and mirror, we're good to go, let's sign this, baby. What could possibly happen? And then, of course, we saw what happened. And they're like, wait, this is, oops, ouch. So that I could say more about this whole story, but my point is cyber insurance has been a huge driver for good, forcing us to do more things. And if you're not riding that train, you're missing out. And I don't mean like as a sneaky, nasty sales tactic. I mean doing the right thing for the client. Last thing I'll say about this, because it's big. 2022 and 2023, we saw two things happen. We finally saw a level off on the cost of insurance last year. And we also saw for the first time a staggering drop off over the past 2 years in losses. So what does that, to me, as a cyber dork, here's what that means. For the very first time in history, we now have in the aggregate, an increase in controls results in a reduction of the numbers of breaches. People say, if I invest in all this, is it really going to stop? I can't say it for you, but I can say in the aggregate, yeah. Yeah, question? Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, what about the conflict in Ukraine, the war there, and all those things that are happening? Absolutely, right? Because we know a lot of the threat actors actually are out of Ukraine. Little thing we don't like to talk about it much, but it is true. And so for sure, a lot of those guys are picking up AKs and going to fight, and we'll see what happens as that war tends to close down. I think there's definitely going to be, that will be a factor. And I've always thought that's a factor. So it's a great point, really great point. So I hope this is helpful to you to kind of understand why cyber insurance matters. I couldn't move past that because it's been such a big driver over the past few years. So they care about things that impact their business. They don't care about stuff like this, right? Like as much as I care about data centers and how cool it is to go into a data center and I'll see all the cool flashy lights and the latest tech and just rack upon rack, like I think that's cool. How many of you do? Like it's cool. Let's be honest. We're nerds. We got into this world because green blinky lights make us feel awesome, don't they? Like everything is right in the world when lights are green, but they don't care about that. They also don't care about our 30 threat maps. You guys remember the age of threat maps in like the mid 2000s? And we would show that on a board in front of a decision, be like, whoa, so you mean like someone from like Ukraine is actually attacking somebody in like Albania? You're like, yeah, yes. And all these are, it's just reading data. It's reading alerts that are popping up on different systems. It's not like it's not like a war. Like people, like your clients are like, this is super cool. And then they go away and they think nothing of it. It drives nothing. And this is why we've seen the age of threat maps. While you'll still see them around, they don't really do a whole lot, right? But here's what business owners care about. And there's so much to say about this. They care about systemic risk. They care about little things that lead to big things. And one of the things I would encourage you to say to your clients is, hey, when we're having these conversations, one of the things that's most important for me is, you ever seen those like domino, like those kids that build those huge dominoes in gyms? They just put one down and all that kinetic energy, one to another, leads to a million of those dominoes falling in this epic fashion. And you know what's crazy about that? In order to stop that, all I'd have to do is pick one domino before it falls, put my hand in the middle of it, and that whole thing stops. Clients can be like, yeah, get it. That's my job. My job is to help you say, I can't stop the dominoes from falling. I can't stop you from having an incident. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to you. But one of the things that we really want to invest in is being able to put our hand in the middle of those falling dominoes and stop something before it gets worse. In my perch days, we would see this all the time. Little hygiene issues become big, colossal issues later. Chris Lair is going to come and talk tomorrow from a cyber IR side of the house. He's awesome. If you haven't heard Chris, he's going to share stories. And you'll be amazed, maybe you won't, so many of these stories start from preventable, obvious things. I saw a ransomware incident that started from a browser toolbar that was installed. And a bad guy got access to it and started loading some of his own malware into it and would do redirects. And that was the beginning of the incident. That's what let the bad guy in. Something as simple as that. So my point is, we can't stop the dominoes from falling. We can put our hand in the middle of them. So that is one of the big things that we want to talk about. And so how many of you heard this in like sales coaching? This idea of like teaching, tailoring, taking control. Have you ever been through like, it's classic sales 101. Before I come in and I try to take control of a conversation, I have to make sure I have a couple prerequisites. So first of all is teaching what we're doing today. Just literally just teaching to make sure that knowledge comes across. Because if I try to take control of a conversation and there's no knowledge that's been conveyed, it's going to look like just a sneaky sales pitch. But the second thing, though, is also tailoring that conversation to the right person, to the right industry, to the right ears that are listening. And I'm always perceptive. Like even when I talk to an MSP for the first time, I'll sometimes say something like this to you. Tell me about what your security looks like today. And I ask it intentionally in a super, like you can go any direction you want in that. And I ask it that way because I just want to learn from you. I don't want to steer you into the right conversation that I want to hear. I just, generic question, you can take it any way you want. But that helps me understand more about you and who you are and what you're investing in and what your level of maturity is, all that. You should do the same to your clients. So tailoring to them is really important. So let's talk about that for just a little bit. Here in Tampa, anyone in like hurricane world around here like us, any Houstonites, folks in Louisiana, we know hurricanes well around here. One of the things in Tampa and pretty much all areas that are affected by hurricanes, we have these flood maps. And these flood maps are really valuable because they help us understand based upon where I live and what zone I'm in, when I might need to evacuate based on all the data, where the hurricane's coming, what strength it is, when it's coming, all of this stuff. So these maps help us teach us what's the likelihood and what kind of damage might I incur. Where am I going with this? When we're talking to our clients, this is what we're getting at. What is the likelihood? What is the potential? What is the damage? And they don't know the answer to that unless you've helped them ascertain that answer. So granted, if they're a small coffee shop, they might not be in the equivalent of this anywhere in the red zones. If they're a bank, if they're a CPA firm, if they're a whatever it is, they're going to be in one of the red flood zones, so to speak. So this is one of the places we start is understanding where they're at. A lot of times we try to shove data at them, and I'm not a huge fan of this for a bunch of reasons. One is they look at data like this and we say, well, $180 a record from Ponemon back in 21, and they've done that all the way up until this year, and it's roughly the same. It goes up and down, but it's close to that. And we say a small business less than 500 is 3 million. I'm not a huge fan of this because how many of you guys don't deal with clients like 500? Like the study data shows 500 small business, and you're like, I'm dealing with like 50 employees. Maybe max, right? I know that. So not a huge fan of this because a client sees this and they say, well, that's not applicable to me, so I don't care. Now, this can work if you're talking to a larger org, for sure. But I think what's much more helpful is to talk about something like this. is sitting down with the client and saying, hey, if we had a big incident and we've spent some time getting to know you, we've kind of understood who you are, we understand, you understand their data flows, their crown jewels, what their most important systems are. And so now because you know all that, you're having this conversation with them, and now you start to say, hey, if you have this ransomware stuff you probably heard about in the news where it shuts businesses down and they're having to do with all this stuff around reputational damages and potentially paying a huge amount to a criminal, which is super scary, and you got regulations on top and having to notify attorney generals and all this stuff. Let's just talk about the outage. The average outage, the average downtime of a ransomware attack. 99.9 times out of 10, the client's like, I ain't got no clue. Like a day? Maybe a week? I have no idea. So this is just Wes's answer, but I've dealt with this many times, and in my mind, it ends up being about 16 days of hard outage time from most ransomware attacks. Now, that's not including a lot of we're 30% up and it takes months and months to get fully back up to speed, just hard outage time. So what does that translate to the client? This question. I'd love to know from you what this does to your business from a cash flow perspective if you lost half the month of revenue. Not including everything else. Lawsuits, lost clients, fines, paying the ransom. Let's throw all that out. Just 16 days. How many of your clients do not have the capacity to float 16 days? Most probably don't. So that's just a great way to say, that's what we're addressing. That's what we're talking about. So this is what we're talking about. So this is the same dude on the left and the right. The left, he's just got a suit off the rack. Kind of close, but not quite. And then same dude on the right, fully tailored. How much better does he look? So one of the things that is important for us is to make sure that when we're talking to our clients, we're tailoring to them. We're addressing who they are and what they need according to their business, their size, their industry, our past relationships with them, a lot of things that we have to. So if we're not getting to know them, I can't tailor a suit for somebody unless I know their size and their measurement. Same with our clients. So I would ask you, how are you measuring yourself and them up when you're talking to them? And here's the cool thing. Don't feel like it's this onerous, impossibly, I got to spend 25 hours a week with them. It doesn't require any of that. My friend David Powell gave this analogy and I love it. He said, a lot of times it's like this. Imagine you go into some like boutique suit shop, where the dude's got this cool mustache and beard and he's wearing his own 3-piece suit, and all, and he's got the man bun, right? And you come in, you're like, I'd like a new suit. He's like, no problem, I got you. As you stand on the little wooden thing, he's measuring you up and he's got it all perfect. He's writing, he's like, great, I'll see you in a week and I'm going to have the perfect suit for you. And you walk out, you feel awesome. And what does he do? He goes to the back of his room that you don't see and he's bought a bunch of suits from Men's Warehouse and he finds the one closest to you and he just does a couple nicks and tucks. Like, oh, I need to reduce that a little bit and change the arm length a little bit, but just a couple and I'm good to go. That's the analogy. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the people, you have the process. Don't feel like I'm telling you, you have to do this superhuman thing no one's ever done before. You already have everything you need to do. My question is, are you tweaking that in just the right way for that client? That's the question. That's the approach. And I hope that gives you encouragement because it's less difficult than you might think to do some of this. So here's what I want to do. I want to spend a few minutes talking about some ways I like to message this. So I talk to your clients all the time. What I mean by that is for years and years and years, I've had the opportunity to speak at conferences to non-technical people. And I got a whole series of things I want to share with you that I share with them. So this is not for you, this is for them. And you're welcome to use these things if they're helpful to you. All right? So this first one I'd love to talk about. And I'll say to them, hey, will you describe to me what you see here? And I'll ask you guys, what do you see here? What does this image show to you? What's that? Lighthouse? A little turbulent. Yep, you see a little, some steam or mist or something coming across. Yeah, kind of a dark, brooding day. What else do you see? What's calm before the storm? Yep. So something is definitely a dark day. Storm's coming in. Yeah. Lighthouse isn't on. Could be an issue. It's a great thought. No one's ever said that to me before. It's very true. Very true. A little bit of sunlight coming in. Yeah. You can see it. Yeah. So I love that because based upon what we see, those are very accurate descriptions. The problem is I haven't given you the full image. And every time I do that, you're like, whoa, I forced you into an interpretation based upon what you could see. But there's a lot more to the story. Where am I going with this? So many times I will hear from someone that goes through an incident and they say, I had no idea. I had no idea this was about to happen. I was going through my day. Everything was awesome. I had no idea. My favorite example of this, I was talking with the folks over at Novatech, and I joined them for a conference years ago, and they actually had one of their clients come up and tell their own breach story. It's powerful in front of all the rest of their clients. I couldn't believe it. It was just a regular insurance agent, nothing special, just like a State Farm kind of, local office or whatever. And he said, everything was great for the week. Friday, I roll up, I go home. I'm chilling with the family. Saturday, I do some golf with some buddies, take the kids to the movies. Sunday, I'm chilling, I'm watching football. And later that night, I get a couple texts from some of my work buddies and like, hey, I can't log in. Can you? My email's not working. He's like, yeah, I don't know. This is pre-pandemic. And so he's like, yeah, I don't know. So he VPNs in. Sure enough, nothing's working. He's like, well, office is 5 minutes away. I'm just going to roll over there real quick and take a look at it now, solve it now so we hit Monday running. So he goes in, he wiggles his mouse, he logs into the computer, and all of a sudden all his icons are changed. He's like, what? So he opens one of the icons. It's a text file. It says something about this ransomware. You got to pay this Bitcoin thing. He's like, what? That's weird. So he goes to another machine, logs in that one, goes to the next one, logs in that one. They're all hit. And he said, so for us, we ended up paying about $250K to get out of the ransom. We did pay for the ransom. We got the decryption key. It took forever to decrypt our machines. We were out for better part of a month. It was miserable dealing with clients, all kinds of stuff to forward them to the corporate office because we couldn't do anything. On and on and on and on. He said, all told, just from all damages, about $1 million for us, is what he said, which hurts because we're a small business ourselves, he said. And I don't have a 401k. So that was it for us. He said, but you know what I learned was the IR company came back and said, hey, we have all the forensic data. You want to know how it happened? And he said, I would love to know how it happened. He said, so your normal story, someone sent one of your employees, this person over here, a PDF with an invoice, and they opened it, had a macro, it went out and reached out to something, and they downloaded it and opened it, and off you go. He goes, ouch. Then he said this, you want to know when that happened? He said, yeah. He said 30 days ago. That happened 30 days ago. And what he said, I'll never forget, on the stage in front of a whole bunch of people, I had 30 days to do something, and I had no idea. 30 days. It's not like push button get ransomware in so many cases. Yeah, that happens. But most of the things we deal with, bad guys get access. They're called what's called initial access brokers. They go sell that out to somebody else that does the nefarious work. So you have lead time. You have opportunity. In so many cases, you have the opportunity to do something before something gets so bad. The problem that clients have is they think this is where they live from a digital perspective. Like, this is a nice neighborhood. It's been around for probably 100 years. I've lived here for 50 of them. I know all my neighbors. We do a block party every New Year's Eve. I'm super comfortable. I know them all by name. And that's where my network is that way. We've been doing this for years. And everything's clean and clear. And reality is this is a lot closer to where they actually this is their situation. And they have no idea because no one's ever shown them. And here's the thing about these slums. They're never designed this way, are they? It always happens from socioeconomic neglect, all kinds of stuff that causes what was a really nice area to become a really terrible area. And so part of our job is to help them understand where they actually are, because by nature, they're going to think they're the former, not the latter. And they also think this about you. This looks like a young Joe Biden. It never ceases to make me laugh, stopping all the bad things, I suppose. But this is how they think about security. This is how they think about you, that you've been stopping the bad stuff forever, and there probably are bad guys out there, and they don't have to worry because you got the hand up. And you're stopping, it's no question. But reality, this is, and we know this is kind of real life. And it just gets better the more you look at it, right? Because the little guard gate's going down, stopping all the people from coming in. People just yoink right around it. And it's probably not even bad guys going to rob the business. It's probably just employees that got mad that the gate got left down. They got to get to work. So they just yoink right around. And this is, honestly, for most of our clients, we're like, yeah, this is actually kind of where you're at. This is what you've invested in. And I know that, and you don't know that, but that's it, right? I do like the old 90s slasher movies. Many of you have probably seen these before. Does anyone know what movie this is? Yeah, When a Stranger Calls, great movie. This is back when those moments, so she calls and the babysitter calls, and they're like, the call's coming from inside the house. We traced it, right? In those days, you're like, OMG, right? Like, it was crazy. And I love this because it really shows so many of the issues that you deal with as a client are coming from things that happen from within your network. And I don't mean you have like these nasty, malicious, evil insiders. I mean, it's your people that open the things, your people that click on the things. It's sad that we're in 2024, 2025, and we have the same problems we've always had. So don't hear me say like your people are your weakest link, all that kind of stuff. But I am saying like, isn't it a wonder that we still do security awareness training? We've been doing that for 15, 20 years. And I sometimes wonder, what has that even done for us? Just philosophical thoughts you should ponder on, but we really haven't made any progress. Anyone know what movie this is? Awesome. War Games. So young Matthew Broderick, right? And he's hacking away. Like, this reminds me, like, he's maybe 10 years before me, right? But I remember these days, and I remember how fun it was to like go hack things and be a cool hacker. But the most I could ever do is like open someone's CD-ROM tray remotely, or like connect into their ICQ session, start typing in, and they'd be like, what's going on? I felt like the god of the world, right? Like, it was so powerful. It was so awesome. It was like this awesome event. We know that this day is gone. Like, no one cares about that stuff anymore. And now that everything is driven financially through the internet, like it's a whole different world. And I will tell you, personal experience, the way that I know this world has gone by is, and the way I know this movie is not realistic is, do you see the one thing that has never happened in my life that's happened in this movie? He's got a girl like watching him hack. And that's never happened to me ever. Never will it ever happen. So yeah. I'm going to skip by fishing. We know fishing is like a huge problem. So I love this story here. This is so great. So my neighbor is the nicest neighbor on earth. His name's Eddie. I live in like an 18-home subdivision. Everyone's retired except for us. And I got kids, right? And so I'm always like, we're the neighbor with kids, running around, all that stuff. And he came up to me one day and he's like, hey, Wes. He's like, you doing okay? I'm like, I'm great, Eddie. How are you? He's like, I'm awesome. I'm like, cool. He's like, how's your dog? I'm like, I think she's great. I just walked out of the house and she was there. He's like, okay, good. Kids okay? I'm like, yeah, kids are great, Eddie. Like, thanks for asking. Like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay, good. He's like, well, last night I was walking my dog and I saw a coyote. I wanted to let you know. I want to make sure you're okay. I'm like, Eddie, thank you. Yeah, we're totally okay. We're no problems with coyotes. No one's been bit. We're good to go. Right? Everything's great. He's like, okay, good. So he puts up the sign in our neighborhood and a whole bunch of others. And he's going on a mission telling everyone about coyotes. Now, I grew up in Kentucky. So like, I remember camping and hear him like yelping all around. It's not a big deal. Like, you're just used to them. It's not a huge problem. But for him, this is like mission one. He needed to let everyone know. The entire time long, I'm smiling. I'm nodding at him. I'm being nice because he is the nicest neighbor in the world. And I'm like, you're concerned about coyotes? And all I can think of is we live in this world. And like, this is what I would be worried about. This is Lakeland, just the next town over. And this big old 12-footer's like, you know what? I'm just going to walk through this like nature preserve. And what are you going to do about it? Like, nothing. Like, there's probably a human in there, both here and here. Like, he's living his best life, right? And you got to understand, gators do this kind of stuff. Like, they'll just come up to someone's house and be like, I'm chilling by your front door today. This is where I'm going to be. And if you don't like it, you're just going to have to wait. Because this is where I'm chilling for the day, right? Or like this guy here, I guess he's animal control, and he's got his war on gators going on, and he's like, I've never understood this. Like, is he cuffing? I think he's cuffing his little nubby legs. Like, poor guy. What did he do wrong? He's just living his life. And some guy's cuffing his little legs. He did like close his mouth, you know, but my point is, all I can think of when Eddie was talking about all this is where the real threat lies. And so often for us and for our clients, we miss where the real threat lies. We're so worried about, or we're not worried about, all the big mega hacks that are on TV. What we should be worried about is some of the most important hygiene basics. Those are the gators that are in front of us. Let's not be worried about all these crazy things. I'd love to deal with those. How about some more foosball? So this is Tom Brady. I do know him. No, I'm like, I don't know him. No, I know who he is. I know who he is. And this is him. I got some pictures of him when he won his very first Super Bowl. Doesn't he look awesome? Like, how many of you hate his guts? There's always like half of you in the room. I don't really care. It's football, right? But no doubt, like, this is a life-changing moment. How many quarterbacks have won a Super Bowl? Not very many. Very few. He's in an elite few. Now, we know that he won another one and another one and another one and deflated footballs to win more and all these kinds of things that he did. But he won a bunch of them. And I want to show you his last Super Bowl that he happened to win in our town. So in Tampa, we do these boat parades when we win something because it's, I guess, too hot to walk through a street. And he takes the dang Super Bowl trophy and he chucks it from one boat to the next. And I'm like, bro, if this were your first Super Bowl, I can guarantee you, you would not be chucking it from one boat to the next. Now, the guy that catches is Gronkowski, that huge guy over there. But here's what's so great. Watch this again. Watch Tom's daughter. Don't miss this. See your daughter? She's like, Dad, don't throw the trophy. Don't throw it. And my point with this is I love this. It's this idea of we see success. We haven't been hit by something. Everything's good. I'm not worried. And we get lackadaisical just like Tom does with the Super Bowl, don't we? We do. We don't have to worry about it. Everything's good. It'll be fine. Don't have to worry. No big deal. Everything's like, that's how we are so often. I think it's important for us to remind our clients to avoid that and be careful. So I'm going to kind of finish out on this is taking control. So we talked about teaching, we've talked about tailoring, and now I want to talk a little bit about taking control. Let's say the New Year's is right in front of us and you're super excited, right? You're like, dude, this is the day. I'm finally going to get in shape. I'm going to get all like toned out. It's going to be awesome. I'm coming in at 6 a.m. every single day. And not only am I, people shaking their heads like, yeah, no, that's not happening in 2025. Nope. That's next year's goal, right? That's a future West problem, not a present West problem. So I say, not only that, I'm going to go get myself a personal trainer. So I go and find someone that looks all cut on Facebook and they're awesome and their rates are great. And I'm going to meet you at 6 and you better be ready to go. And you're like, yeah, let's do this. And so you show up and a few minutes later, he walks in and this is him. And he's chugging Mountain Dew. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not so sure that I want to listen to you. I'm just not so sure that you're my guy all of a sudden. I might change my mind a little bit. Now, maybe he used to like win the strongman back in like the 80s or something. I don't know. My point is, we a lot of times can be this style of, I want to tell you why security matters, and yet we're not doing the things ourselves. And one of the best motivators for you to get confidence in what you're building for your clients is to be good at it yourself. So one of the easiest ways to do this, pick a security framework and go through it, no matter how difficult it is. Pick the CIS controls and go through that sucker. Work on it. Oh, but CIS controls 1, 2, and 3 are really hard. Yes, they are really hard. They're super hard. But we're going through a peer group. I'm leading a peer group in CIS with a bunch of MSPs, and we finally got to control 4. And when we got done with it, I asked him, did you notice 4 was way easier than 1, 2, and 3? And he said, yes. I'm like, just wait till you get to control 5. It's also the same way. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm stopping on the CIS controls because I talked to so many MSPs that are like, I am a huge CIS fan, but I got through 1, 2, and 3. Actually, I didn't get through 1, 2, and 3, and I gave up. Do the hard work. Get through 1, 2, and 3. Blood, sweat, and tears, and you will notice the world will open up in front of you, and the way you talk to your clients will open up as well. So let's deal with how the objections. First objection people say is, I'm too small for anyone to care. Like, I'm not going to invest in this because no one cares. So eSentire pulled this data, and I think it's really fascinating. They pulled 180 victims. And one of the things that we see is, look at this. The vast majority of incidents, the vast majority of businesses are somewhere in this, right? This 185 is a little confusing because it's talking about whatever it is. I think the aggregate of like, it's only the large businesses. So ignore this little subtitle because it's confusing. The vast majority of businesses that suffer some kind of incident, this thousands of surveys, are between 1 million and 25 million. So like, we're not too small to care. The fact that you're small means that you're less resourced, means that you don't have the things in place that you need. Makes you more lucrative to a bad guy. A lot of times they think they'd rather go after Bank of America. And of course they would rather go after Bank of America. But it's going to be far more difficult. So the fact that you're small makes you an opportune target. Also, this is helpful as well, and feel free to use it. I'm too small. Why would they even come after me? Why would that matter? And I'll ask them, does anyone know the salary of like an average Russian citizen? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, look at this right here. According to Google, it's 1.2 whatever rubles are, but that ends up being about 14,000 a year. So don't tell me that a $50,000 or $75,000 ransom will not change the life of a Russian threat actor. You give them $75,000, they know that you can pay as a small business. You've just given them years and years and years of salary. Game changer for them. So you're not too small to matter. So important that clients understand this. That's a really helpful way to get them to kind of get this. A couple other things. This came in, and I'll get these on occasion. So this came in from an MSP and said, I'm sorry to bug you on a Sunday. We're dealing with a serious healthcare ransomware attack on the line. Quick insurance question for you, blah, blah, blah. And then down here, diagnostics companies down via ransomware, supporting all major hospitals with over 100 patients coming in on Monday. The insurance company won't provide a copy of the policy, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what to do. And this part here. And the owner is freaking out. It's real. They don't care until they care. And then they see the ramifications of life on the line because none of their systems are working correctly and they're in a rural area. I come from a rural area. Could you imagine as a patient bringing your father in and they got hit by a ransomware attack and they straight up can't help your father? Like, that's what we're dealing with. So I want to encourage you, not scare you, that you have a huge part to play in this. That your role in this has never been more important. Because we're not just talking about just the average junk. We're talking about lives on the line. It's a real deal thing. Covert tracks this every year, ransomware payments by quarter. And the reason I show this is they say, oh, the cost isn't that bad. The average, and I like median better than average because you can have a few huge ones that really skew the average. So the median is a better number to look at. So the median being $200K, I love seeing that because you see in the news, oh, ransomware payments are $2 million. And you're like, yeah. Again, they look at those numbers and not for me. Come on. So we see that the median is $200K. That is a wonderful number to point out. And just 5x that in terms of lost business, all these other things. So it gets to $1 million quickly. But this helps them see, like, this is actual data. This is from, like, Covert is one of the best that do this. So it's really, really helpful to see all of that. I'm almost done here. I love questions. So I didn't know that lions got CAT scans. Did you guys know that? So I was looking for, you've seen me already. I like to speak in images. And so I'm looking for like CAT scan images and I couldn't come across anything that I liked. And then I found this random lion getting a CAT scan. And I'm like, okay, I'm using that image. But I want to tell a story about a CAT scan. Actually, I don't. I want to tell a story about a conversation I had with, when in my perch days, I was working with an MSP and they said, Wes, I think we've got this large healthcare group to move forward with perch. I'm like, hey, that's great. I'm super glad to hear it. He goes, but he wants a conversation with you. I'm like, okay, cool. Put me on with him. So it's the practice lead. He's a doctor. I talk with him for 15 minutes. He's like, look, the cost is high. It's way more than we've ever spent on anything before. I'm like, I get it, you know, and has anyone explained to you kind of what you're getting? He's like, yeah, I get it. It's people, it's all the stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, I'm willing to do this. He said, but I just have one question for you. I said, okay, shoot. He said, so if we invest in this, we buy this perch thing, are you going to guarantee me we're not going to get hit by some kind of attack? I said, can I ask you a question? He goes, sure, shoot. I said, if I come to your healthcare clinic and I get a CAT scan every single day, or every single year is probably a better way to say it, are you going to guarantee I'm not going to get cancer? And he goes, I see your point. I'm like, so no, I'm not going to guarantee you're not going to get hit by something. But I'm going to tell you put the right things in place. It dramatically goes down when you do get hit by something. We can take action on it far before something gets really bad. And that is what you're investing in. And that made sense to him. He just had to have the question answered. And I get it. This whole ROI and security is something people want to know. What do I actually get out of investing in all this stuff? There is no guarantee. Anyone that says there is a guarantee is lying to you. So if you want to see evidence of this, I want to show this to you. So this comes from Visual Capitalist. I'm a huge fan of them. One of the things they've been showing is how regulations have actually had a huge impact in the automobile industry. And so one of the things that we do is we track deaths per mile. So how many deaths do we have for every 1,000,000 miles driven in the entire industry? And when you know it, way back in those days, we have those big boats of cars, you know, those huge front end cars and like the old Pontiacs and all that. We're like, those are like huge and no one ever get hurt in those. In the 60s, 70s, we've never had more deaths. Huge. Those things were extremely unsafe. There's a couple videos you can see of them testing like a modern, like a Chevy Malibu against some old car, and the front-on collision in the Malibu, the cage is fine. You can tell the driver would walk out of it, and those old cars, they're obliterated. So what happened with regulations? Well, we've slowly put these things in place. Things like 2-point seatbelts and front headrests, then 3-point seatbelts, and all these crash testing and all these things that they've put in place over and over and over and over. And what has that done? It's brought down the deaths. It's brought down the deaths. It's brought down more safe than ever before. In fact, even in this world, when people are doom scrolling on TikTok instead of driving, we're more safe than we've ever been. It's fascinating to me. Absolutely mind-boggling. But here's the big thing. We still have deaths. It still happens. There's still risk. We can't eliminate it forever or completely. There is no such thing as getting cars to 0 deaths per mile. Won't happen. So the story we talk to clients is we're doing the right things. Cyber insurance, regulations, compliance requirements are the same thing in the automobile industry. The same thing happened with us. If you ask me to point my finger on like where we're at today, we're probably like here-ish. We're probably like in the early 70s equivalent is where we're at today. So we have a long way to go, but it's working. It's happening. And so I think that's the big thing. So as I kind of finish out for you guys, just a couple things, you look at this dude, I have no idea what he's doing, but I know I could never do that. And he's got all these people watching him and it looks amazing. And people are like, oh, he's so talented. Look how good he is. Look what he's capable of. That's amazing. But do you know he started out like this? Every single person that could do the other things had to start out like this. So my encouragement to you, my challenge to you, my ask of you is this week and then into 2025, be this. Celebrate this. Go learn. Go figure things out. Go ask others. The worst thing that we can do is just be like, I got this. I'm good. I don't need help. Go ask. Go learn. Go teach. Go invest in your people. How many of you hired 5 to 10 to 15 people last year and more to come? And they're coming in with no college degrees. They're not coming in from Bank of America. You found them at the Ford dealership or Best Buy. And they need to get up to speed. So maybe you're good, but the rest of your team is not. So that's my encouragement to you. If you do that, you'll find success. And I love this. It starts with this. It starts with just one step after another. If I went and met with my financial advisor and he's like, man, Wes, I'm looking at your accounts and like, dude, you're not going to retire, brother. It ain't going to happen. You have to do these 15 things to even have a chance. Probably going to give up. If he comes to me and says, hey, we're not in good shape. Let's be honest, call spade a spade, not good shape. But if you can do these 3 things, we had a chance. Let's get you out of credit card debt. Let's get you away from spending all this money on like Netflix and all this crap and maybe one other thing, I don't know what, maybe going out to eat less. And if you can do those things and get out of debt, then we can spend the next 5 years doing these things and get you to a retirable position. Put me in that conversation all day long. I can do that. You're giving me 1 to 2 to 3 things that I can do. And so for your clients and for yourself, stop thinking about all the thousands of things and getting stuck in the analysis paralysis. What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that you should be doing? And that's a great question to ask one another today and tomorrow. What are the 1, 2, or 3 things you have that you guys, that your MSP is doing? Learn from one another and ask. All right? So I got, what questions do you have? And how much time do I have left, Danielle? What's that? Fine? Plenty of time. Great. Questions?
Your number one thing that has the most impact in today's market? You're going into a new client who's very immature on a security perspective. Is it passwords? Is it backups? Is it email security? What is it for you?
Yeah, great question. The number one thing. So it's hard for me to think about, like there's probably 5 or 6 major controls that are just critically important for a client, right? So the things I think like vulnerability management, EDR, good like immutable backups, handling all the privilege controls on machines that live everywhere. Those are all like those big things. Those are all like in the top 5 or 6 that every cyber carrier is going to require too, all that kind of stuff. But I think to me the big thing is what we've talked about of like, am I actually do I understand my client? Do I know where they're at? And have I been able to clearly communicate and got buy-in back from them that they agree that's where we're at and this is where we need to go? And if we can get there, then the next step becomes, hey, can I work with you over the next 3 months to build a budget to get there? I'm not asking you to spend all this money tomorrow. Most clients don't have the money to say, cool, I don't have those things. I need those things. Even if they want to. and you come up for them and you knock on the door and say, look at all these egregious issues you have. Now you owe me $20,000 to get out of this, and be like, go away. I can't do that. But if you come to them and say, you agree, we agree, this is where you're at, not a good position to be. How do we get you here? You agree, yes. Then my next meeting, I'm going to have a budget for you that's going to have monthly increments. And can we agree to this budget? And a lot of times the client's going to come back and say, I can do that. I got a couple of deals I need to close anyway. So when I close that, I've got some money and we can do this next step. And then we can do the next step. Then we can do the next step. And I think that's, to me, the most important thing is we can get really collaborative with our clients and we can help them build the budget to get there. Then we can be so much better off. How many of you are comfortable building budgets with clients? Yeah, I want to see all hands go up and actually building them. So that's what I would say. That's huge for me. How about cyber insurance and forcing the mandates and is there a world everyone will have to have it? And even can like the carriers do a better job? I'll add to that question. Even can the carriers do a better job of even like real time? How are we actually doing versus this point in time questionnaire, all this kind of stuff? All of those things are yes. And I'll save a lot of that for the Cork folks. They'll be able to chat with you in their board session about that. But high level, I see that's where we're going for sure. I see a world in which just like I put a little beacon in my car and it measures how I drive and it knows in the aggregate I should be a safe driver. I drive like a bat out of hell because I'm just a terrible driver, even though I don't fit my mold in their actuary tables. That day is coming for cyber for sure. I also am seeing more and more, anyone MSPs here mandate that all their clients carry cyber insurance. Yeah, so we're starting to see that, right? Maybe 10% of the room came up on a yes on that. I'm not saying to do that, but I'm saying it's a wonderful position to be in. So we're starting to see MSPs say that and say, hey, within 2025, we're mandating that you carry cyber, just like we carry it for ourselves. We inherit risk from you. You inherit risk from us. We carry cyber insurance. We're requiring you to have it. I guess that's a business choice. If you feel like that really gets them going on it, I think doing what you can for that is great. Talk to the Cork folks about how they would view that. But I do agree, you can't be the one selling. You're not an insurance agent. You're not licensed. It's super dangerous and illegal for you to be selling cyber insurance. But yeah, talking about it, mandating they carry it, helping them get through the questionnaires, all those things are we should be doing because you're an SME. Yeah, so the question was, what about the carriers starting to offer managed security services themselves and give that out? So I think it's a huge conflict of interest. I think it's Fox guarding the henhouse. And I think that the carriers largely are not your friends. Right, so the people we have to deal with. And so this is where having a relationship with the client matters. And I think working with carriers that understand that and know who you are as an MSP and support you and know that what you're providing is valuable. Because here's the thing, a lot of times those like managed security services the carriers are providing are designed for large business, not your mom and pops, not your 100 employees and down. And so just explaining that to the client, but also making sure you're working with a carrier that gets that, because they will compete against you for sure. And so this, again, all the more reason why you should be having conversations before all this happens. And you should be in the cyber insurance conversations with your clients. Because if you don't, and then they go and grab cyber insurance from whatever agent it is, and then that agent has no idea who you are and you get cut out of the whole mix. Like that's a real deal thing and it happens. So this is why you've got to be proactive in front of it. That's a great point. Then, so basically, if you didn't hear, the commentary was sort of like, we're doing this. We engage in those conversations. Yes, we don't sell it, but we do recommend it. We ask for them to carry it. We help them get through it. Those are all signs of maturity, keeping things in glue or whatever your document management is on their policy when it renews, the actual policy itself. Those should be in your day-to-day VCIO discussions. They should be things that you do. We train animals. We always use positive reinforcement, not negative, right? Like I can scold the dog all day long. It does nothing. But when I give them positive reinforcement, they learn how important that is. So I do think largely with humans, positive is far better than negative, but there has to at some point become accountability that comes into the org. So how do we introduce accountability? Accountability comes through discipline. It comes through measurement. It comes through knowledge. It comes through communication, all these things that we have to introduce. And so it sounds like we have a problem there, and this is common, right? It sounds like we have a problem there where those employees just don't get it. They don't care about it. It's not something they're just going to click anyway, whatever, right? So how do we deal with those things? Well, I think where I would definitely start is understanding not just how prone they are, but communicating to leadership what the systemic result of that would be if they had clicked on something nefarious rather than something that was part of a test. And so I think one of the things that can be really helpful there is even designing like a tabletop test that helps them understand the ramifications of what comes out of that based upon the entry being a scenario just like that. So if you guys don't know Bob Miller from Global Data Systems, he's the CEO MSP over in Louisiana. He runs these virtual incident response things. It's a gamified IR thing. It's called irgames.ai, I think, or just look him up, Bob Miller on LinkedIn. MSP just like y'all. Reach out to him because he's doing those, and it's immensely valuable to decision makers to kind of understand the ramifications of what those things would look like. that comment of like, one of the things we should get away from or avoid and not do if we've already been doing it is, and I agree, I've talked to multiple attorneys who have said the same thing of like, don't get in the habit of saying, well, you need $1 million. You need 2 million, whatever the number is. Because what happens in a situation where you recommended $1 million and then the result of that incident was far more than that, could they come after you? Well, I mean, we live in a litigious world, sure. So what I like to, and to your point, what I like to do is say, but I'm not your insurance person. So generally, I love the words generally speaking. Generally speaking, clients are usually around $1 million to 2 million. I'm not here to tell you what needs to be. I need you to talk with your insurance agent. If you have legal counsel, talk with them as well. I can tell you what average breaches can cost. I can tell you all of those kinds of things. But generally speaking, you know, it's this area. Talk to your qualified professional. That is a great thing to do, and that really does absolve you of the risk. Because I'm not a licensed agent. So I don't have the ability to ask those things. So the insurance world, we'll call it misrepresentation. And there's examples of this that have happened. I've got a screenshot I can share with you later. It was in Insurance Journal a couple of years ago. And what had happened was the client indicated they had MFA rolled out. And it wasn't one of those where they said that they had MFA rolled out and they did, and they disabled it and forgot. Like, that's a different story. They never had it rolled out, never. And of course, forensics don't lie, right? Logs don't lie. So when in the aftermath of the incident, the carrier, I think it was Travelers, in my mind, rightly came back after and clawed back those losses from that client because lying is what they did. They lied. Whether intentionally or not, they lied. And so I would absolutely, if you notice those things, I would get to a point where you're notifying the carrier and they are notifying the carrier. They are addressing it. Absolutely. The nature of the agreement, the binding agreements between the carrier and the client, not you. What I would do to make sure I absolve myself is I communicate it in writing, that there's notice to the client that it's been spoken of. Our recommendation is that they notify the carrier, they work to address it, and we're here to help you do all it. So you have all of that in writing. Generally speaking, I think most clients in today's day and age say, oh, thank you, let's go get that fixed, knowing that we would be on the hook if something happened. But the agreements between them and the carrier, that's where the binding happens. You have no part in that. But you definitely don't want to be in that boat where you realized it and didn't tell the client, because there could certainly be situations, again, I'm no lawyer, right? But search situations, they say, well, we didn't know and you didn't tell us and you're the professional. So having that documented is really important. Not in the habit of filling it out for them, definitely not. I can see where they say, there's 10 pages of nerd stuff. You're the nerd, go do it. The answer should be what you just said of, we'll help you. We'll be with you in the room. We'll help you answer questions, but you're filling it out. You're answering it. You're signing it, not us. And I believe you should charge for that. I mean, you're a professional, but that's your time, your knowledge, your expertise. You should charge for that. Yeah, those costs of the breach are important. And there's several websites, and I can give them to you if anyone needs them, that show state by state, like even every state's requirements on data breach notification laws. State of Florida, for example, has a number of things in place where it stacks up day by day. If you have a certain number of records that have been impacted and you haven't notified to the Attorney General, like those things add up. And then it gets even more complex when you have clients that have clients in other states. And how do I deal with that? And also the nature of like what FTC Safeguards talks about, the difference between a consumer and a customer. So people you have data on, it's not actually a paying customer. You're still responsible for safe holding that data, right? So that's why they've gone after car dealerships in particular, right? Because like, well, I'm just a middleman. I'm not actually I'm just taking the financial information and passing it on to a bank that's going to take the loan. And FTC's like, enough is enough. Y'all have been popped over and over and over, and you are the custodian of all that data. You're responsible for it. So we're starting to see those things happen, and I'm glad those things are happening, right? Because so many people are like, well, they're not directly my customer. I might have that information, but I don't have to safe hold that in a proper way. And those days are numbered. They've been numbered, which I think is great. All right, that's about all I have. We'll end a little early so y'all can kind of get back to all the good stuff. Thank you so much for the time today. It's been awesome. I'll be here all day today and tomorrow. So can't wait to get to meet y'all and see you and answer any other questions. And thank you guys so very much.